Venkatji, are we ready to start?
Yes, we are now live on the Facebook.
Okay. Let's get started.
Yes. Namaste. On behalf of Shri Venkatesh Temple, Novai, I would like to welcome you all to a new Vedantic lecture series, Adhyatma Prakasha, Vedanta Simplified by Shri Venkatesh Hollabbi. Shri Venkatesh Hollabbi has been serving Chinmaya mission for over 27 years. He graduated from the Sandipani Sadhanalaya, an immersive full-time residential Vedanta course for over 2 years under the guidance of Pujya Guruji Swami Tejomayanandaji and the tutelage of Swami Bodhatmanandaji. In this course, he underwent a deep study of several advanced Vedanta texts in a structured way. Shri Venkatesh Ji has served in several managerial positions at Ford Motor and Boeing Company. He took an early retirement to serve the community and to spread the message of Guru Parampara. As many of you know, he recently completed 8-week Essence of Bhagavad Gita lecture series, which was very well received by the whole community. I would like to thank Shri Venkatesh Ji for coming forward to share his immense knowledge of Vedic scriptures yet again. I now request Shri Venkatesh Ji to begin the lecture.
Hari Om. Let us get started. Before we get started, I would like to chant some Shanti mantras, and then I would like to acknowledge the temple trustees. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shuklam Baradaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasanna Vadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye Vagishadya Sumanasaha Sarvartanam Upakrame Yam Natva Kritakritya Syuhu Tam Namami Gajananam. Vakratunda Mahakaya Koti Surya Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Vyasam Vasishta Naptaram Shakte Pautramakalmasham Parasharatmajam Vande Shukatatam taponidhim Vyasaya Vishnurupaya Vyasarupaya Vishnave Namo Vai Brahmanidaye Vasishtaya Namo Namaha Vasudevasutam Devam Kamsachanuramardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. First of all, I would like to invoke the grace of the Lord Venkateshwara and the blessings of our entire Guru Parampara to make this Gnana Yajna successful. As Venkatji said, and as you all know, we had a very successful Gita Gnana Yajna on essence of Bhagavad Gita in summer, which had a very overwhelming response. If you have missed that, you can still catch it on the temple website, which has all the recordings. Before we start, I would like to express my profound gratitude to the SV Temple trustees for providing me with this opportunity again to share various aspects of the Vedantic concepts, what we are calling it as the Adhyatma Prakasha series. It is a 15-module series which will expose the seeker with many concepts of Vedanta. The idea here is to give you a high-level overview of some of the main concepts of Vedanta that will lead you to a formal study of a Vedantic text. I look forward to having you all regularly in these sessions. With that, let us pray to Bhagavan Ganesha. Om Ganana Antva Ganapati Gum Havamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Ana Shrunvannuti Bisi Dasadanam Prano Devi Saraswati Vajebirvajini Pati Dhinama Vityavat Om Ganeshaya Namaha Om Saraswatyai Namaha Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Om Shanno Mitrasham Varunaha Shanno Bhavatvaryamam Shanna Indro Bruhaspatihi Shanno Vishnurukramaha Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami Ritam Vadishyami Satyam Vadishyami Tanmamavatu Tadvaktaram Avatu Avatu Mam Avatu Vaktaram Om Shanti 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 Om Bhadram Karne Bhishrunuyama Devaha Bhadram pashyemakshabhiryajatraha stirairangaistuštuvagum sastanubihi vyashema devahitayadayuhu swasti na indro vruddashravaha swasti na pusha vishvavedaha swasti nastarksho arishtanemihi स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्ददातु ओम शांति शांति शांतिः सदाशिव समारंभां शंकराचार्य मध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्य पर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरु परंपराम् ओम ब्रह्मानंदं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिम् द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वधी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि सद्गुरुं तं नमामि सद्गुरुं तं नमामि समस्त जन कल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं यस्य सन्निधिमात्रेण सर्वे शिष्याश्च सेवकाः कर्मक्षेत्रे प्रवर्तन्ते चिन्मयं तं नमाम्यहम् चिन्मयं तं नमाम्यहम्. So we always, welcome to this series, we always start off with Sahana Vavatu as the Shanti mantra. So I wanted to give that meaning just as an overview. Om Sahana Vavatu is an ancient mantra often used as a prayer that is recited before any studies are started in the Hindu scriptures and at the beginning of the class. It's considered the Shanti mantra, which is a chant or a prayer of peace that comes from the Krishna Yajurveda of the Taittiriya Upanishad. Om Sahana Vavatu. Om, may God protect us, the teacher and the student. Sahanau Bhunaktu. May he nourish us together. Sahaviryam Karavavahai. May we work together with great energy and enthusiasm. Tejasvinau Aditam Astu. May our studies be effective. Ma Vidvishavahai. May there be no hatred amongst us. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The peace invocation. Om peace, peace, peace in three forms within me, in nature, and the divine forces. Be peaceful. Adidaivika, Adhyatmika, Adibhautika. So let's start. A lot of times people ask, what is our Samskriti? What is our tradition? What is our culture? So we start with our culture, which is, what does culture mean to you? It means different things to different people, especially when it comes to Hindu culture. Culture, from an organizational perspective, Phil Kotler said it is the habits, traditions, behavior of people or groups in a particular organization. From a Hindu culture standpoint, somebody may say our Gita Upadesha, our Gita studies, Gita as a scripture, our way of life, right? And somebody might say the way we greet people with our namaste, the way we greet, that is an aspect of our sampradaya, our tradition. And some people might say that the way we traditionally marry in a sampradayic way, that is our culture. Some people might say the way we decorate our front of the home and with our rangoli and so on, that is a part of our culture. Somebody might say our art forms, our Bharatanatyam, our music forms are a way of our culture. And somebody might say the way we celebrate our festivities, our Deepavali, our other festivals that we celebrate is a part of our culture. The way we eat is a part of our culture traditionally. All these constitute a group of behavior. And for that, our Puja Gurudev had the best definition for culture, which is in Sanskrit means samskriti. The definition of culture, according to our Puja Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda Ji, is it has to meet 4 of the criteria. A group of people must exist and live together in a particular geographic area for a long time and respect a certain way of life. If it is an individual behavior, we say it is the nature of that person. It is its swabhava. It is their samskara. Whereas when it is a community behavior, we say it is called as culture, samskriti. It is, we say, Eastern culture, Mid-Eastern culture, Western culture. All these are aspects of our culture. In Sanskrit, kritam means that which is very well done, well refined. So culture is our refined behavior. So prakriti and vikriti, there are 2 aspects. Prakriti is when people behave, or samskara or swabhava, in accordance with the nature. Fire, its natural tendency is to burn, it has heat as its swabhava. Vikriti is perversion. Uncontrolled urges, desire, or all perversion is not in accordance with the nature. This is how 3 terms, samskriti, in accordance it is prakriti, not in accordance it is vikriti. Why there is need for refined behavior? Since nature has given mankind, as humans, we do not want to have impulsive behavior or instinct-driven behavior, because we are the crown jewel of creation, because we are blessed with an discriminatory intellect. We have the ability to think, we have the ability to reason, we have the ability to differentiate not only between right and wrong, but also from real to unreal, to choose what is absolute good. How? One might ask, that is through culture, samskriti. Culture prevents prakriti from becoming vikriti. That leads us to the famous quote that I'm displaying it on the screen from Swami Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Man without culture is like a vulture. Vulture, as you know, is a bird which flies very high in the sky, but it is always eyeing what it is eyeing on the dead bodies on the ground. So we call it high flying, low eyeing. Similarly, a person may be flying high in their career, but is he or she flying high morally, spiritually? Our Puja Gurudev used to always say, culture cannot be taught, it has to be caught. So we know that experience growing up in our childhood in India. Nobody needs to tell us how to behave in our cultural way. So most important aspect of culture is live a noble life of culture, which leads us to there are two aspects of culture. Adhyatmika Samskriti, which is the spiritual culture, that which believes that truth is beyond what is seen by the senses. And Bhautika Samskriti, or a materialistic culture, which constantly believes that seeing is believing, proof is in the pudding, truth is perceived only by the senses. So these are the two paths, two different aspects of culture. A materialistic culture is our typical scientific behavior. The world we interact in itself is neither good or bad, nor bad. How we look at the world is what matters. Materialistic culture gives reality to what is gross, what is tangible, that which is perceived by the senses. Further investigations, typically in a scientific behavior, we determine what is the nature of the matter and so on, is emphasized. Focus is purely on making lives of people comfortable. They do not accept the existence of unseen. They always say seeing is believing. And the unseen, he pays only lip service, makes no further inquiry into it, most of the time. They're also very adventurous people. They want to know how deep the ocean is, how deep the earth is, how to travel into outer space, including other planets. We are even thinking about colonies on Mars, etc. All investigations of this nature are done through the mind, the intellect, the sense organs, and other equipment can also be involved. Apparatus like microscope, telescope, spectroscope, mainly to determine and discover what is far, what is deep, what is subtle, etc. A material scientist typically believes this world is made for our enjoyment. That is the main theme of Bhautika Samskriti. In order to do that, the material scientist believes that we must conquer nature, make it useful for our personal life. These are some of the dominant thoughts of a material scientist. Now, a spiritual scientist, or our rishis, started to ask and give importance to what is unseen. The existence of matter is not denied, but what is seen alone is not real. There is something through the unseen, invisible to the senses, cannot be ruled out as non-existent. This is the thinking in the inquiry. In fact, the spiritual person believes that which is unseen is what controls the world of objects, visible, perceivable. The spiritual scientists or rishis were also very adventurous people. They focused on investigating into the unseen that is not experienced through the senses. What is most fascinating is people are ready to give up money, power, comforts to investigate what is unseen, what is invisible. Humanity has an inherent curiosity in the unseen. This spiritual scientist asked the question like, who am I? Where did I come from? Where was I born? Where was I before I was born? Where will I go once I die? Why am I sometimes happy? Why am I sometimes sad? Am I okay as I am? Or should I do something else? Why do I seem to want a little more than what I already have? These are some of the dominant thoughts of a spiritual scientist. Now, the world itself is a very glorious place that we live in, especially here in the US. We live in a land of abundance. We enjoy a life of comfort and many luxuries. But are we happy? But at least we can say we are not fully, not all the time. All of us are puzzled by this paradox that somehow we are never satisfied. For example, I take one ice cream, a favorite flavor of mine. I have 3 scoops of it. I'm satisfied. The 10th scoop, I'm almost at the point of throwing up. This is typical law of diminishing return. We all know that. A lot of observations that the rishis made, the great thinkers, defined certain basic guidelines. Our rishis analyzed this paradox of life in order to find that lasting happiness. We call that in Sanskrit nitya, eternal happiness. Our nature is essentially that of freedom. We do not want to be told what to do and what not to do. Everybody rejects that idea. The true freedom, the rishis said, is based on intelligent self-restraint. Something like the travel on a highway. There are no traffic lights to restrain our movement, but we need to move in a disciplined way in order to progress. That is called as intelligent self-restraint. The laws of a country in general, what it does, it protects people. It protects people from reckless behavior or any irresponsible activities. In the same way, scriptures, what they do, they prescribe a code of conduct for developing the right contact with the world. The general complaint from everybody is that the world is full of evil, full of problems. How can I find peace and happiness in this world? The spiritual masters have time and again answered this question by explaining that peace and happiness, they do not exist in the external world, but it is generated within ourselves when we maintain a proper contact with the world. In fact, they tell us that we are the very nature of happiness. Sat Chit Ananda, Ananda Swarupa. First, we start all our problems, in fact, are a blessing in disguise. They help us to develop our personality. Take the example of diamond versus coal. Same carbon content, but diamond becomes precious because it goes through the pressure tests of life. Pressure test, and that is why it is becoming precious. The first thing we must develop is to develop a sense of gratitude. Gratitude for and appreciation for what we have. What it does is the mind becomes tranquil. When our mind is tranquil, our faculties are alert. Our actions are effective. The idea is well summarized in an old saying that says, I had no shoes, I complained, until I found a man who had no feet. Automatically brings in that sense of gratitude and gratefulness for what I have. Freedom is that essential nature of being human. A person who is free from slave-like dependency of this world is truly free, because what that he does is he does not depend on this world to provide him joy. This is where Vedanta comes in. It is that science of self-unfoldment that teaches us how to regain our divine heritage, to become human beings again instead of human doings. To be beings from all dependence on this world, to discover that which is unchanging, blissful nature of that true self. In Vedanta, we often compare this life to ocean. The surface of the ocean is made up of infinite varieties of waves, some rising and some falling. While the surface is restless, when we go deep within, the same ocean is serene, unaffected by the disturbances at the surface. Today, we tend to live mainly on the surface of our existence. What we do, we change the objects, we change the situation to become joyous one moment, sad in the other moment. If we learn to identify ourselves that there is one unchanging reality behind those changes, we would raise above the ups and downs of daily living. We would learn to enjoy lasting happiness. A person of perfection, as we understood in Bhagavad Gita, it called him Sthita Prajna or Jivan Mukta Purusha, has gained mastery over his environment, situations, and remains composed, unruffled by the vagaries of this world. He has emotions, but he does not succumb to them. One must have emotions, but should not become emotional, as it ruins one's progress both in the material world and in the spiritual world. A human being consists of body, mind, and intellect, and a life principle. which makes these equipment that are essentially inert to be sentient. That life principle is what gives us sentiency. So the physical body dwells in the realm of perceptions and actions through sense organs. Mind dwells on emotions, intellect on thoughts and ideas. So Vedanta begins with the question, what is the goal of all human endeavor? When I ask the question in a group, one wants to be a doctor, one wants to be an actor, one wants to be an engineer, and so on. No matter what the academic goal of everyone is, everyone wants to be rich and famous. Why do you want to be rich and famous? To be happy. So all human pursuits are motivated by two impulses. Revulsion to sorrow, atyantika dukkha nivritti. I don't want dukkham in my life. Longing for happiness, paramananda prapti. Basically, these are the two impulses. Because of these, we pursue objects, we pursue situations that are conducive and favorable, avoid things, situations, objects that are not conducive to us. In and through all these desires, what do we desire? We desire happiness alone. When did this desire begin in us? When we inquire, we find that we are born with it. The search for happiness presupposes a state of dissatisfaction or sorrow. So each of us have been searching for this from beginningless time immemorial, from dawn to dusk, from birth to death, life after life, and yet we do not seem to have found it. Now let us inquire. What is the nature of happiness that we seek? Do we want to be happy today, tomorrow, next year? No. We want to be happy every moment, starting from now and forever and ever after. That is why we all want fairy tales to end. They lived happily ever after. It makes us happy to hear that line because we seek that eternal happiness. If we experience some happiness in object A or a person A, situation A, in a place A, and then some more in object B or a person B, situation B, what do? We simply drop A and move on to B because we want to maximize our happiness. These questions were inquired by our rishis through their scientific inquiry into the human personality, they discovered. Presently, what do? We seek the following in order to gain happiness. First, take place. Desha. What do? We change places to be happy. From India, we move to America, and some people move back to India and elsewhere. Why? In order to be happy. Take a vacation each year, and when the novelty wears out, we return. Then we change time. Kala. We always wait for better times to come. Hey, this time is not good. Hopefully, time will change. Then we change objects. Vastu. We change our phones. We change our cars. We change our houses. We change our TVs. Regularly hoping that the new model will give us greater joy and lesser trouble. Then we change circumstances, status. We call it paristiti. A bachelor wants to marry. A married wants to divorce. One becomes a renunciate to be happy. We change jobs in order to be happy. But later we find out, oh boy, I fell from frying pan to fire. That is not all. We make or break human relations. We change people. Vyakti. We fire the maid in order to keep the mother happy. We leave the mother to keep the wife smiling. What this does, this leads us to the fundamental inquiry as to what is that happiness. These questions were the basis upon which our rishis inquired into human personality. They discovered that happiness has little to do with the possession of objects. They discovered that there is a clear relationship between the state of mind and the joy or sorrow that we experience. When the mind is agitated, there is sorrow. And when the mind is tranquil, there is joy. Happiness is thus measured by the tranquility of one's own mind. It's a very subjective phenomena. At times, one may feel tranquility of mind may be brought about by the contact with a sense object, but it is temporary. No enduring satisfaction or joy can come from sense gratification. Then when the spiritual masters started to assert that human beings, being the roof and crown of creation, have a unique ability to quieten the mind, thereby enjoying the tranquility within without dependency on any object or being. Currently, this capacity is dormant in human beings because we are unaware of it. We constantly seek to procure happiness from sense objects for that glimmer of joy. This is where Vedanta comes in. Our scriptures help in awakening this dormant faculty. Once this art of quietening the mind is learnt, the human mind will not find it necessary to pursue the material world and its enchanting objects to gain peace and happiness. Our Puja Gurudev had the best expression in the form of an equation for happiness, H equals dF by dE. Happiness is equal to number of desires fulfilled divided by the number of desires entertained. The quantum of happiness increases by increasing the numerator and decreasing the denominator, or a combination of both. By fulfilling the existing desires, quietens the agitations created by the desires. Alternatively, by entertaining fewer desires, the agitations in one's mind is lessened. In either case, lessening of the agitations or quietening of the mind produces happiness. However, there is one caution. By working in this equation only on the numerator, if you fulfill one desire, there is another one right behind, kind of like the tissue box. You pull one tissue out, there's another one that pops right behind. As the number of desires increases, the denominator also increases, thus resulting in reduced happiness. The best way to establish permanent happiness is to reduce the number of desires in the first place by redirecting our thoughts to the higher goal or the higher principle. We currently have infinite goals to pursue happiness. But we need to have infinity as our only goal to pursue eternal happiness. This is the equation. Let me repeat that statement. We have infinite goals to pursue happiness. We need to have infinity as the only goal to pursue eternal happiness. When we contact with the world of objects, we experience joy or sorrow. A series of such experiences is what we call as life. Remember our material scientists who investigated economic, scientific, political fields have believed that life could be made happier by improving the objects, by improving the situations of the world. They believed in raising the standard of living. Whereas our spiritual scientists, our rishis, believed that inner rehabilitation will improve the standard of life. Scientific achievements have a worthy place in human society. It is the fanatic materialism divorced from inner development is what is bad for us. Similarly, on the other hand, just a fanatic religious behavior without material development also will lead what it did in the dark ages in the medieval times. No scripture will preach unintelligent denial regarding leading a life of suppression. When we follow our scriptures, it gives us guidance to gain an understanding of the laws governing our inner personality. We will find life inspired with noble vision. Suppression is the result of a forceful denial based on either blind belief, unrestrained enthusiasm, or often superstition. Suppression leads to the degeneration of our inner personality. On the other hand, sublimation. That's why we burn that karpura in that arati. Leaves no residue behind, eliminates all our false values and tendencies, result of an intellectual understanding, intellectual conviction. When we understand that higher values of life, our mental vision broadens, our lower tendencies disappear. Once a man said, I was clever and intelligent, and I wanted to change the world. Now I am wise, I want to change myself. Our Puja Gurudev always used to say, you change yourself, the world will change around you. There is one less rascal in the world. This is what he used to say. Based on this, our Vedantic masters discovered that there are two distinct paths in life. The path of the pleasant, Preya, the path of the good, Shreyas, path of the absolute good. An irresolute mind, to gain immediate flickers of joy, what it does, it chooses the path of pleasant. This will deny one the opportunity for greater and serene happiness. What I have done in the next slide is simply tabulated some 7 pointers. The path of the pleasant, Preya. The path of the good, Shreya. Path of the pleasant is guided by the demands of the sense organs. Path of the Preya is Shreya is guided by the Sukshma Buddhi, subtle intellect. There is a temporary joy in path of pleasant. It gives you instant gratification, but followed by dukkham, sorrows later. The path of the good, it is unpleasant in the beginning, but provides a permanent happiness later. Path of the pleasant is more alluring. It caters to an extrovert mind, while as the path of the good is perceived by an introvert mind. Avritta Chakshu. The path of devolution is the path of the pleasant, whereas you evolve spiritually in the path of good. Majority of the world, majority of human beings take the path of the pleasant. Hardly very few people appreciate and follow path of the good. And I appreciate all of you being here. This is what you want to follow, the path of the good, the Shreya. It is the path of the pleasant is based on instant sense gratification, whereas path of good is based on a very sound judgment. All religions repudiate the path of the pleasant. All religions recommend the path of good, Shreya. This is a very famous Shreya, Preya, Viveka that is taught in our Kathopanishad. Let me recap. a little bit. There was a lot of information. You drank from the fire hose today. I will give you a recap which says, today what did we learn? We learned about our culture, definition of our culture. We learned to distinguish between Adhyatmika Samskriti, which is spiritual culture, versus Bhautika Samskriti, material culture. We learned how our rishis inquired into the path of happiness, the eternal happiness. We learned a little bit about standard of living versus standard of life in pursuit of happiness. We explored the happiness equation, number of desires fulfilled divided by the number of desires entertained. We learned a little bit about Shreya, Preya, Viveka. This kind of gives you enough information to chew on for a week, and we will reassemble next week, same time, same place, different thoughts, different topics. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me at vhollabbi@yahoo.com. Send me a note, and I will be happy to answer that at the beginning of the next class, like we have done before. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you, everyone. Hari Om.